official radio station of the Church of Christ or Iglesia ni Cristo.
Don't underestimate
the power
of a single
conversation.
it could change your whole life.
INCRadio Chatline.
conversations that matter.
Hello everyone, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of INCRadio Chatline. And this is the place where we have conversations that matter. I'm Elson John Cruz, your host for today, and today we're going to be taking a closer look at ourselves. Joining me today is actually I don't know who I should call first. Let's because you're both from Manila. You're both. I was gonna say I'm gonna introduce some from California, but I realized you're both from California. So go ahead. I'll introduce Lionel first. Go ahead and introduce yourself for those for our viewers who might not know who you are.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lionel Ornado from Montclair, California. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you for joining us, Lionel. And we also have, I think some of you might know her because she's been in some of our episodes as well, our Melvi. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you, EJ. Hi, everyone. My name is Melvi from Visalia, California. And if you haven't been in Central Valley, that's basically near Fresno. So in between LA and San Francisco. Okay. So anyway, thank you for having me again also here on Chatline.
Thank you both for joining me in this conversation. If you haven't seen the title of our show, it's about developing habits. So let's talk about that. Do you guys struggle to see your good and your bad habits? That yes or no? Do you struggle to see your good and bad habits?
I would say yes and no. Like, there's some habits that I do see, like, oh, that might, some habits I do see and some that I don't. The thing about a habit is, like, sometimes you don't even notice it.
Yeah, yeah, no. I feel like even for me, some habits, someone has to point it out before I start noticing. How about you, Mel? It's like, do you also struggle to see your good and bad habits?
Not necessarily struggle. I do catch myself sometimes, but like what you both mentioned, I think most of, or maybe sometimes we don't catch ourselves with these habits that we have is because when we're doing it and other people notice it, but when I think especially when it comes to actions, or let's say maybe some mannerisms we have that aren't very, I guess you can say, sometimes it's not attractive for some, and we forget that, when we're in front of people, we have to be cautious about how we speak, how we behave, depending also in the different setting, the different environment. So that particularly in a professional setting, I do catch myself to where sometimes I forget I'm speaking to my boss because they can also on a personal level you have that connection, right? But yes, most of the time I do catch myself when it comes to my bad habits because I've been trying my very best every day to break those.
Mm. Now, speaking on that, actually, like, what are some habits that you think we can all agree on is it's either a bad habit or a good habit to to have.
I think right before we started, I think we all agreed that not having enough sleep is a bad habit.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's one big
For those
thing.
of you only getting 4 hours of sleep, please try to get some more, some more
4 hours
sleep.
of sleep, that's a luxury. No, I'm just kidding.
See, that's what we're talking about. That's why I know it's a bad habit to I know to have because I would say 4 hours is about like half of what you're about half in terms of like hours that you need you need sleep. It's about only half of it. So you need to get that other four as well.
Yeah, we do our best
And
to like think, oh, we can make it out tomorrow night or the next day
mhm,
or in between naps, I guess, but it's hard sometimes when we're so preoccupied. But we have to remember sleep is very important for us to stay healthy, for our brains to remain functional, to be
mhm,
mindful, right?
yeah, stay
To
alert,
be
right?
alert,
To
especially when
definitely.
we're driving, right? We can't
Mm-hmm.
doze off when we're driving. That's very, very important. And why am I sharing this? Because I've actually experienced that. I was dozing off and I happened to be the first car right in front of the red light. And I didn't go the minute it turned green. So I got honked at.
Yeah, I've experienced that
Yeah,
too.
so
And that was very, very, very embarrassing for me. So that was very
especially
much
if you're
noted on my part.
yeah, like you mentioned, especially if you're driving, yeah, if you're the one driving, or
Yes.
if you're driving from into work, it's important that you get those, I know, get those 8 hours where you're able to stay alert, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
guess that's like, I know, it's like one habit we can all agree on, is either like good or bad. I would say one, just to even it out. I would say one thing we can all agree on is a good habit is, I guess, exercising. It's like a good habit, depending, or no matter, I know, I would say no matter what your lifestyle is, like, it's important to get a workout in there somewhere. No matter your routine. So those habits that I know that we have, they create the system of how we live, the way that we live our lives, even the every and any small thing that adds up over time, those things become habits, even if we're not aware or we don't pay attention. So let's talk about how we see the signs of these habits. So how do you separate, first off, how do you separate your good habits from your bad habits? And anyone can answer first. Like, how do you say, oh, okay, this is a good habit, and oh, this is a bad habit? Like, how would you separate? Just any general, I guess, general rule that you go by that separates those two.
I think for me, I think a good sort of dis- distinction between a good and a bad habit would be whether or not it's detrimental to my health and well-being, right? So
Mm,
because like good habits, for example, like we talked about earlier, was exercising. Another one would
mm,
be eating healthy, getting enough sleep. Those are helpful to our health and well-being, so I think those would be considered as good habits. Some bad habits would be, I don't know, something that I'm kind of prone to is procrastination, right? Waiting till the last minute to get things done and not giving things enough time to, put my best effort into it. That can be considered like a bad habit. For example, procrastinating on working out.
mm.
You're late. Or you're consistent and all of a sudden you stop. But if we
Mm,
think about it, like Lionel mentioned, definitely something that's detrimental to our health. And the reason I think why we notice it and we can distill both in both aspects is because one is an action that create a positive outcome and
mm,
then another is a negative impact. So again, at the end of the day, attitude is a choice. So when we're again, there's that word when we have self awareness, and that's another good habit, right? That we can actually implement in our daily lives.
mm.
And I myself, again, I've mentioned this in the past or in our previous broadcast, that I jot down notes or I would even type it on my phone and journalize what I've been doing wrong and what's working for me and what's causing my productivity versus non productivity activities in my life. And the reason why I started doing that is because when you're so preoccupied with so many responsibilities in life, sometimes we end up forgetting ourselves. We neglect ourselves. Again, neglecting our health is also a bad habit. So, getting enough sleep, working out, or even just exercising, setting a time, like walking during your break, for example, 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the afternoon, that's already 30 minutes. And you add all of that in the whole entire week of your work week, that's already productivity right there, right? So we just have to we just have to choose and also remember what works for us and what makes us a better person in terms of our actions. Because if not, then the consequences will be negative. And if we don't eat well, if we don't get enough sleep, we don't exercise, eventually the outcome will be our body will get sick. And then we have to, or our body is going to be now compromised because we neglected our own self. And that alone, when you're sick, you're not even able to do anything anymore. You're forced now to rest. You're compelled to do things that you don't want to do because your body says, you've been doing too much. So guess what? You have to rest now and you have to get better. In order to get better, you have to take the initiative to do what needs to be done in order to get better. So, I think it just also depends on the person and their circumstances in life. But like I said, at the end of the day, it's a matter of choice.
It's an interesting point you brought up, right? Nah, even if let's say that something looks like a good habit, like it's something that pushes you to kind of like that point where you'll be forced to. I know you'll be forced to take a rest. Like say you got sick, right? You're like you have to now. It's not an option anymore. You have to take a rest. You have to give yourself uh, a resting period. It might not be so good, but I like how you both separated. The good and the bad habits. It's the consensus that I'm getting is that anything that can badly affect, right? Badly affect uh, your health, by your relationships with with others, right? Can those are like the bad habits. The good habits are the ones that help you. So now I want to ask you guys, like, how does frequency or how often you do something play a factor in in your different habits, in both the good and the bad habits, in terms of building or breaking
I think in terms of frequency, the more you do a good habit, the more it becomes a habit. Because for a habit to be a habit, we have to sort of do it sort of subconsciously, being
them.
able to do it without much thought and lowering that barrier of entry. The more we do it, the more we get accustomed to it, right? That's sort of how our bodies learn. And that same also, while the same goes for a good habit, the same also goes for a bad habit. The more we try to avoid doing that bad habit, the more that we would be able to, easily avoid it. Say, for example, one thing that I've heard is that, for example, working out is because we've already brought up that example.
Mhm.
Say we want to work out and but there's no time, like, if for me to do XYZ, I have to do ABC first. One thing that I've heard that we can do is to make it easier for us to do it. So by setting things up before, like say like we want to work out, uh, after work we're gonna go for a 30-minute walk or jog. Uh, bef- so what you would do is before work is you would set out your workout clothes before work so that when you get back from work, you're not coming home and being like, oh, all my clothes are in the closet, I don't know what to wear, kind of thing. Like that's one less thing for us, our minds, to worry about. um, as we continue to be more frequent in those sort of setting up, even just the setup to a good habit, the easier it will be for our bodies to sort of go into a routine of those good habits.
I agree with that, especially on that point you brought up where, um, like I would say the hardest part is like beginning to break that bad habit, like lowering the frequency or just like uh stopping yourself, but like being in that first in that first, let's say the first few days, it feels weird, it feels new that you're let's say for me I'm just gonna say this, one of my not so good habits, I wouldn't necessarily call it a bad habits because it's a hobby. It's playing video games, that's that's a hobby, but too much not good. So lessening the frequency of like playing video games, at first I did feel the urge of like just opening my computer and playing a video game. But like I had to stop myself and go, no, you already played the allotted time that you gave yourself for this week. Like you don't have any time left to dedicate on playing video games. So like maybe next week you can. Like it was hard at first, but like as time went by, it became easier and easier, to the point where now it feels like normal. That feels like that's the norm, for me. And I saw you unmute, Mo. Sorry if I catch you there, but what were you? I know. What would you say in terms of like how frequency plays a part in your different habits?
From my experience, the one thing that I've now learned to actually do more often is shortening my time when it comes to screen time. So, you know how when you first wake up, right, and you turn off, if you're using your cell phone as your alarm clock, you are so tempted to just open all the messages all at once, or maybe even social media and see what is going on out there or who's messaging you, if you got a special message maybe from special someone or whatever. But for me, now I don't do that. The minute I turn off my alarm on my cell phone, I drink water. I go about my day. Sometimes, if I do have time early in the morning before I get ready, or I shower before I go to work, I would do a 30-minute jumping jacks or jump rope or walk around the block, and then get ready for work, have my breakfast. And before I go to work, let's say if I know I mean, you can see if it's an urgent message, especially from other people that's important. I would check that message, but it's the last thing I'm going to do in the morning. It's no longer the first thing I'm going to do. How did I break that habit? Because one day, I don't know what got into me. So I was looking, scrolling, and then I was having fun chatting with a friend whose time zone was completely opposite of mine, and I got carried away, and so I was late for work.
Yep, that would do it.
So, like I said, negative consequences, right, from your actions that you thought you were doing fine. I woke up early, daily routine. I was going. I was happy. I had stuff to do, but just that one mistake, one morning, I told myself, never again, never again. And I was honest with my boss. I was forgiven, but still, I, that for me is not an excuse to be late for work, unless it's an emergency. Unless my tire got flat or something, or my car is not working, then by all means I'll be late for work. But or if I'm sick, for example, or I'm not feeling well and I happen to just call in at a later time, then it's something that's out of our control. It's fine. But that moment right there where I got carried away, and I'm being honest, it's an honest human mistake. And I was disappointed in myself. So from then on, I told myself, okay, I'm going to change this and it needs to stop. So I did. And even now, sometimes we are so busy. I work in the office all day, 40 plus hours a week sometimes, and even on weekends sometimes. So my eyes can get very, very tired at the end of the day. And so, what I would do before I would sleep now also is read a book just to relax and not because you'd be surprised how long it takes to just when you're scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and if you see something funny and then people just keep messaging you and say, oh, look at this funny vids or look at this memes or whatever, and then you just get getting your before you know it you were supposed to do something else, and then there you go, you lost track of time as well. So that's one thing that I actually had to change in my life. And just like Lina said, or you also mentioned, EJ, even just 1% of change on a daily basis adds up. We have 365 days, right? And I think bad habits, if I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it takes what, 21 days, I believe, right? Lionel? EJ?
I'm not sure
To
on
break?
the number of
I can't
days.
remember.
Yeah, I
There's
can't remember
certain,
either the
right?
number of
There's
days, but yeah,
certain,
there's a
yeah, I
no.
think it's 21 days, if I'm not mistaken, to break and get a good habit or routine or something like that. But in life, we all have our routines. Again, we all have our responsibilities, but we just have to be aware and be cautious of what works for us and what's also good and bad at the same time.
Aware is a good, it's a good
Yeah.
routines. And I just want to say, I don't know, I like the scrolling through social media. That's pretty much my that's pretty much my teenage years. I don't know how like there will be times back then where I would wake up. I would wake up at 7, but I wouldn't get out of bed until like 9 or 10 because I first it starts off with just checking like your messages, like checking your notifications, especially you know how notifications are on your phone where there's like like there's the icon of like the app and then there's a number next to it. Like, oh, this many people message you. Like it starts off with that. It starts off with that. And especially those messaging apps that are connected to like social media. You start off with replying to their messages, and then before you know it, you back out of the messages, and you're like, oh, there's a post from someone, and then you just keep scrolling, you just keep scrolling, and before you know it, you spend 2 hours just looking through social media, talking to people, where you still like I don't know how many times that has caused me to cram finishing my homework and studying for tests because I spent too much time looking through social media. Now I wouldn't say it's I know it's too different. Now I only check I check the I know the notification of how if you like kind of swipe down on your phone, you can see the messages, like kind of like a preview of the messages, and that lets me know if it's urgent, if it's something I can get back to later. If it's not urgent, then I just okay, I can wait. That can wait till later. I gotta do what I gotta do first, and then oh I know, then I'll respond to that. It's all a matter of self control, self discipline, as you won't mention. And actually, related to that, have you ever caught yourself, in the middle of bad habit, which I think we pretty much already answered. But what I really want to know is how did you realize that, you know, that it was a bad habit? What made you go, oh, this is not a good habit to have? What I know what was it that flipped that switch in your mind that made you realize it wasn't a good habit?
I think what Melvi mentioned earlier was the basically what I think they call it doom scrolling on social
Mm.
media, where you're just flipping through their social media feeds and going from one social media app to another, and then somehow you end up back at the first one, and then the cycle starts again and again. Um, so we talked about morning routines, and something I've been trying to do. We have these. I have a smartwatch, which is very handy for me because I would set timers, and also it acts sort of as a barrier between me and my phone, like with notifications or with just interacting with the screen, because I can't scroll through social media on my watch right? I can get notifications, like if someone's calling me or someone's messaging me, I can check it. And like what you said, EJ, is if it's important, I can get back to it later. Something that I try to do in the mornings is right, not look at the phone right away, but I sort of set myself as a timer. Set myself like a timer, like 15 minutes, like, it would go off. So in that way, if I'm like getting distracted or taking slightly too long with getting ready, 15 minutes, time check, stuff, and it'll help give me sort of like a time check, right? And yeah, that's sort of when I started catching myself in the middle of a bad habit. Was like I started to get I started showing up a little bit later and later at work, and it doesn't help that my usual start time is before my bosses. So like initially I was like, oh, it's just a couple minutes late. Oh, it's just like 5 minutes late. My boss isn't even here yet, right? No one can really tell. And then like one day I was like, oh shoot, I have to start. It's time to start work, and I'm still at home. And I was like, okay, there's something has to change. And so yeah, that's when I started implementing sort of like morning timers to sort of keep me off my phone. Like I would check like messages, especially because I use it to help track my sleep. Even though we mentioned that we need more sleep, my sleep score has not been good recently.
Same here. I also track my sleep, and it keeps giving me that awful.
You need more
Sad
sleep.
thing.
You need more sleep. I know.
Sounds like a habit that needs to be built now.
Yes, working on it.
But that made me smile. I know what you said about work, because that's also like for me when I realized that scrolling through social media might not be a good habit. Was one time I went to work without being able to have breakfast because I was running late. So I was like, oh, I don't have time to eat anymore. So I went to work without breakfast, and lunch was still lunch was still 4 hours later. So
Now you
uh,
gotta bring snacks
yeah,
on your,
that
for your work. So
I
next
wasn't
time.
even able to eat snacks like on my like on my workstation. So that first 4 hours of work, being both still slightly sleepy and also hungry, that made me go, you know what? Maybe not a good habit to to scroll through social media before work. So yeah, that's why your answer kind of made me laugh. It reminded me of that time. That I also realized that something wasn't a good habit. But how about you, Melly? What was the thing that made you say, yeah, that's not a good habit?
When I eat too fast, because when I get so busy, I forget to eat on time, or I would procrastinate on food, I guess. Don't get me wrong, I love to eat, but when I get busy, for some reason, it's a bad habit of mine not to eat on time. So I would have either indigestion, stomach ache, and I would lose track of time again. So just like Lionel, what I'm doing now is I would have a timer or an alarm, even for working out. So let's say if I decide to work out, let's just say 4 days a week, for example, and I would choose in the morning, or if I know I have more time in the evening, then I would set my alarm. And then when I work out, I would set my timer for at least 45 minutes. And hopefully I can accomplish 45 minutes within that time frame or time period. And so it's amazing, the technology, the watches we have nowadays, the phone, connected to our watch that help us keep track of time, keep us, informed of what our daily activities are, the number of steps we do on a daily basis, for example. So the apps we have, or the phone, or the watch, have been very, very helpful in developing now these good habits that I need to continue to work on in order to better my life. Plus, when we're in a good mood, we're happier, and other people also are happy to see us. Another bad habit that I've noticed is some people just seem like to just be angry all the time, or they have this look on their faces. even at work, and I would sit there and wonder what's going on. Are they even aware of this, of their own behavior? So, I mean, maybe they don't mean it, but maybe they're just having a bad day. But when it's a constant, daily, same expression, and sometimes, I don't know about you, but I have experience where people actually noticed and they would approach me. The ones that really know me, of course, they'll say, Melvie, you haven't been smiling lately, or you seem to look angry a lot. What's going on with you? So I would have to explain myself. I said, okay, Melvie, I think you need to kind of not wear your emotions on your sleeve too much. And just kind of tone it down a bit here because, and it happens to me as human as we are, when I'm frustrated or when things don't work out my way, sometimes my emotions get the best of me. So that's another habit that I'm also trying to improve, is the action and reaction of the situation or the circumstances or the predicament I'm in, because I don't want to make an impression to other people that I or be taking it out on them because of my own behavior. So that's also another kind of a bad habit that I have that I'm trying to work on. Doing my best. So
I'm sorry. Your answer made me laugh because I have been told that one of like I guess one of my not so good habits is like I frown a lot, which I don't mean to do, and it doesn't always mean that I'm upset or I'm mad. Sometimes I do it to squint or to like adjust my glasses. But apparently, I look like I'm frowning when I do that, and that has been something that people have pointed out to me. They say, "Oh, why are you? I know, why are you always so angry when you're eating? Like you're frowning." I was like, "Oh no, I'm adjusting my glasses with my nose. Like I'm not angry at the food. Like I'm just adjusting my glasses." but I don't know. I'm good at like it's like realizing the bad habits. Just getting back into realizing those bad habits has been something that has been fairly easy for us, but something that's a little bit different to that, and I would say is a little bit more difficult to do, is to build or to break habits. So actually, what would you say is harder for you personally? Is it harder for you to build a habit, or is it harder for you to break a habit?
I think for me, I find it a bit more challenging when I want to develop a new habit. Let's say, for example, I would want to improve, let's say, on my communication skills. And of course, it depends on the avenues you're going to take and the resources you're going to be using. So when I find it a little bit more challenging because I have to put in the work, put in the time, for example. But I know it's the one thing that I love doing, that I want to be able to improve on and continuously improve on. It's because I know that when it comes to communications, it helps in all aspects, in any kind of relationship we have with anyone. This is why I'm a believer that communication can solve a lot of problems, misunderstandings. And yes, sometimes it's hard when you're confronted with people that can be difficult. But again, that's another habit that we need to kind of be aware, and again be a little bit more empathetic, sympathetic, and understanding and patient, because everybody's different and everyone has their own ways of kind of just expressing themselves. So on that aspect, as I'm learning to communicate, I am also trying my best to also be a good listener, because I do have a tendency that when, let's say, I'm in a crowd, and I love to talk, I love to communicate. That's just me. I love to talk. and express myself. And the thing is, I was complete opposite when I was younger. I did not want to talk. I was a mute. I would cry in front of a crowd. Now I'm complete opposite. I don't know what happened to me. Maybe something snapped or something. My inner self. But it's always nice to get to know people from different countries or different cultures, and also learn, from them and from each other. And so that itself, I had to really think, okay, Melvi, you need to change a lot of things if you're going to go in this route. You're going to do this, 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 this. So there are steps. There are the correct steps. So I find it more challenging when I know that it's something that I really need to work hard for, and it's something that I need to do it frequently and not just do it one day and then stop. Do it one day and then stop. Like working out, that's fine with me because I try my best to stay active at work, anyways, and during my breaks, I do my best to make that up. And I'm constantly active every single day. I'm doing things. I barely sitting and not doing anything unless I'm on vacation, by the beach and just watching the sunset and sunrise. That, of course, then I don't, I can be lazy in that aspect or during that time. But I don't know. Maybe you guys have your own experiences in terms of more challenging. But for me, when it's a bad habit, I am willing to change it no matter what it takes because I want to have a good character. I want to have a positive attitude. And my thing is, ever since I was young, my goal has always been to make a difference in people's lives. So whether if it's something just little or something big, however I can make a difference. That's my ultimate goal. So yes, I do want to break those bad habits. And for me that's easier because I want to be of good character. I want to make an impression to where, okay, this person is a good person. I mean, we all have our own flaws, but it doesn't mean that we can't fix them, or we're not capable of learning how to learn a new set of behaviors to not only live a happier and fulfilling life, but also be impactful towards others. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Um, while you were speaking, it made me realize that I feel like they are two sides of the same coin, whether it's building or breaking. Because with building a habit, I'll start with breaking first because initially I was going to say breaking a habit would be harder because of that like tiny bits of dopamine that we get in our brains when we do that bad habit, even though it would be detrimental to our well-being or to those around us. Um, but also sort of building that good habit. Say like we go on for like I don't know, we mentioned 21 days, but on the 22nd day we accidentally break that habit or something happens where we're not able to continue the habit like working out. Then suddenly all of our progress is is gone because we would have to rebuild that momentum. And sometimes like when we would reach that say that 21st day and we're doing good, and then the next day we end up not doing that good habit and just saying like, oh, it's just an off day. Suddenly that single off day becomes two, five, and then suddenly we're not even trying to work towards that habit anymore. um, so I would say that they are both hard, because it takes, like we mentioned earlier, for the frequency and sort of implementing systems in our lives to be able to help us make the good habits more frequent and the bad habits less frequent. So I think it would really depend on from person to person, uh, but I feel like they are sort of both equally hard in their own ways. Yes.
Mhm. I kind of see what you're both saying there. Like for me, let's say for me, like it's easier for me to also kind of same with that with Melby. It's easier for me to break a habit than it is to to build one, because I did experience that what you mentioned, Lionel, where I already had this good habit of like working out at this time of the day, every day, and all of a sudden, just one day I just decided, you know what, today's a rest day. Then that one rest day became 2 days, it became a week, it became a month, it became a year, where I stopped like working out, as I stopped working out as frequently as I did then before. Whenever I worked out, it was in it wasn't consistent. Like I would work out maybe this week, next week, nothing at all. Then the week after that, maybe I'll get into the mood of like working out again. And it's been pretty inconsistent. Pretty inconsistent. So it's been harder for me to build a habit than to break one. But when you look at them, like you said, it's no, it's two sides of the same coin, right? So what I want to ask you now is like, what I want to ask the both of you, I should say, is like, what qualities or qualities, maybe tools or apps or just anything that has helped you uh, overcome that, like in term whether it be to build a habit or to break a habit. What do you think helps with doing either of those?
I would think like accountability is one, keeping ourselves accountable. And one way that we can do that is to bring others along with us on the journey, because
Mm,
um, we ourselves, like what we mentioned earlier, we might not realize the bad habit, and it really takes someone else telling us like, oh hey, um, I've seen this, it doesn't really seem like helpful or good for your well-being, right? Having someone there or something there, as what we're, I guess, going into, is really helpful. um, for example, for working out, because we've been using it this whole show, is a gym buddy, having someone to go through those workouts with you. um, for I know you mentioned tools and apps. One of the things that I've used heavily is my calendar app. um, One of my friends as I was like looking at my calendar to see like, oh, when I'm available and whatnot, one of my friends looks at my calendar like, why do you have so many things on your calendar? I was like, I so on my calendar I have the time that I start work, the time I'm supposed to go to lunch, what time I'm supposed to come back from lunch, and what time I'm supposed to leave, like, because for the 8 hours thing. And as well as I also have a blocked off schedule for sleeping, even though I miss the mark 90% of the time, right? It's still there. Like, it's something for me to, you know, keep an eye on. And it actually, it's something that really helps, especially with some calendar apps. They have integrated, I guess, like they would be called task lists, like, or checklists that you
like a
could
checklist, yeah.
have.
I know
Yeah.
what you're
Mhm.
Like, say, oh, after work I need to send this message, or I need to call this person, or I need to buy this, right? I would put it on my task list and have it scheduled to remind me when I get off work, or remind me at lunch or whatever to do this thing. um, that's one way that I sort of help keep myself accountable with the things that I need to do, because keeping a mental checklist uh, can work, but not all the time. Because they, like, sometimes, like what Melby mentioned earlier, is that like they'd be so focused on working that any other inputs from, like, say someone comes by from work and say, hey, can you send me this thing this afternoon? And you're like, yeah, yeah, okay, whatever. I'm currently focusing on this. I'll get to that later. Suddenly later comes and you haven't even started the task that the other person has asked of us, right? So checklists, whether it be on an app or even on a notebook, even, that those would be, I guess, call it some tools that can be helpful for us to make or break a habit.
Right. And oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mel.
No, it's okay. I definitely agree with him because my friends and I actually took in a challenge, a 30-day challenge. So we all marked our calendars for a whole month that we're going to do somebody picked a set of workouts. It was a lot to do.
Was it
We
CrossFit?
took our photo before and after. Wow. I told myself, I got to keep this up. So I did it. I posted a calendar on my wall. I had like Lionel had all my to-do list on my phone as well. My calendar's all marked up. Even at work, believe it or not, I have my deadlines plus the workout plus everything else in there. And when we all did it, we were all accountable for each other. Not only did we boost all of our confidence, but also all the challenges you can think of in the world. But above all, we also became closer as friends, and we told each other, okay, we got to keep this up, even though we're done with the 30-day challenge. And yes, we were able to complete it, and everybody was successful and happy and looked good and healthier. So, when you're accountable for something and you also have some inspiration from others, it truly and definitely helps a lot. But I know that nowadays life can be so demanding. So, once again, I definitely agree with what Lionel said. Be accountable for your own self. Remember this, we have one life, one body. Who else is going to take care of it? So I've reframed my mindset to, okay, Melv, if you're neglecting yourself, you realize you're still the one paying the consequences. And you cannot blame anyone else for whatever is going to happen to you. Because you already know what's right from what's wrong. But then if you keep diverting yourself to the wrong path, then by all means, you already know what's going to happen. So when we're aware of the consequences of our actions, then definitely we will be accountable for it every single day. So again, I always tell this to people, attitude is a choice. So make the choice that will make our lives better. Especially because, if you think about it, if we also want to share a life with someone someday, and for you guys, maybe you want to have your own family as well someday, right? And so, you gotta stay healthy. You gotta be on top of of your health, from mental to physical to spiritual to emotional. We're all aware of that. We already know what we need to do. We just need to take those steps and actions to do what needs to be done in order to get there. It's never going to be easy, but I also reward myself when I'm able to do something that's good. If I broke a habit, I would go for an ice cream cake or with coffee or ice cream and just treat myself and say, pat myself on the back and say, Melvie, you did it. Great job, great job. Now keep going. And sometimes I would have post-its all over, in front of, even in the bathroom as a reminder or anything that would help me to remind me of what needs to be done on a daily basis would be very helpful. And whatever works for everyone, everyone's different. Everyone has their own, specialty or maybe even apps that they like to use on their phones. But as long as we're staying active and we're doing something to progress in life and we're actually doing it, then by all means, that's what counts the most. And we should be proud of ourselves for doing it.
I just wanted to add really quick to what Melvie said is right. She rewarded herself for breaking a bad habit, and I think a good, I guess, to take it a step further, if we can replace our bad habits with a good habit, that's double. That's what's the term I'm thinking of? Double
Yes.
whammy. I don't know, something.
I know, but I still like my
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can reward yourself
but not too
for
much though.
breaking the
Yeah.
bad habit,
Not too
and
much.
yeah, and you can reward yourself for breaking the bad habit and for building on the good habit. So it's like double the reward, basically.
Mhm. Oh yeah, I know. I would say actually related to that what you said. Like for me again, my not so good habit was like playing too much video games, and like every time I got the urge to play video games, what I told myself, okay, you wanted to play video games, do 5 push-ups. Like I
Or
replace it
every
with
time you
push-ups.
die in the game, you do 5 push-ups.
Well, I didn't go that far, but yeah, like actually that's a good enough. That's a good. I should know. I should do that. I should do that.
Have sort of
So
like
yeah.
a punishment list for if you
Yeah.
mess up on this, you have to do X exercise. If you end up doing this, you got to do Y exercise or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
And
it
weigh
kind of.
both. And maybe you kind of have a list. Like, and see which, and then check mark. Check them
Yeah,
off.
I would say I kind of did it to distract myself from playing video games. Like, oh, I wanted to play video games. You know what? I'll just do some push-ups. Just some push-ups, and then later on, I'm too tired to play video games.
Well,
That's a
It
good one.
didn't work.
it could be a good transition from the bad habit of say playing too much video games and sort of replacing it with a good habit where you start exercising. And then suddenly, like I said, you're too tired to play video games because of all the exercising, right?
Yeah,
Make it a game, right? Make the game a game.
I
Yes.
would say no. Something I picked up from this is like I'm definitely gonna do checklists because I would like what I noticed before, like looking back on how I've been able to build habits before. Like making a checklist has definitely helped me in keeping like a habit, in building a habit and keeping a habit because like I don't know why if I can see that, oh, I need, like, oh, for this day I said that I needed to do 10 push-ups, then I gotta do those 10 push-ups any time of the day that I have time. I have to get those 10 push-ups in. If I say that I have to read this book up to this chapter, I have to do it because it's on my checklist. Like if I'm not able to do it, it'll bother me. So so like having a checklist, maybe the mindset behind it was not the best mindset to keep, but it got me to, I know, it got me to at least start with to at least start building a habit. But actually kind of related to that, like let's say you slipped up, you missed a day of like your workout, you missed a day of like your practice. Let's say you're practicing how to play an instrument, right? Let's say you missed a day of that. How do you stop that one rest day from becoming two rest days, from like becoming a week, a month, a year, where you've completely let go of the good habit. So how do you handle that when you miss a day of like that good habit?
I move on. I let it go and I move on. And I would tell myself I'm going to do better. And from now on, again, like Lionel mentioned earlier, I'm going to hold myself accountable. For example, when it comes to our diet, I'm actually very thankful for my parents that ever since we were young, and my mom's a nurse. So whenever she would prepare, or they would both prepare dinner, or every meal for us, there's always something green on the plate. And then after that, we would have fruits as desserts. And if we can't finish our food, then you can't. And I have a sweet tooth, among my two sisters, unfortunately. So when I don't finish my food and I don't eat my green veggies on there, then I can't have my dessert with the fruit. So I was compelled to eat healthy, but now it's a habit. See how you develop over, once you've developed that over the years, it becomes a part of you. And once it becomes a part of you, guess what? No one can take that. No one else can take it away from you. It's just a matter of doing it. It's just a matter of doing it. And it's just amazing because I, to be honest with you, I've made myself a trial and error. When I learn from others or I accumulate knowledge from others and even from both of you, I would try it out and see how it works on me. And it opens my eyes to a lot of possibilities. Again, possibilities are endless. And you won't know until you actually do it yourself. And when you see others succeed and go through that process, you also want to do it yourself, and you'll be inspired, to do the same thing. But again, we won't know unless we try. And I always tell this to people: do not limit yourself. You're more than capable of doing something, but you won't figure that out, and you can't find your own path, and you can't find your own passion unless you try it.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
something to add on is like, say we did slip up, and I mentioned, it was mentioned earlier, is the systems that we put in place. Like if we make the systems also a habit, say the example that I used earlier was exercising. To make sure that we try to lower that barrier of entry, we set out our clothes in the morning for exercising. Say that we set out our clothes, we go to work, we come back, something happens, and we're not able to exercise. Um, if we make the habit of setting out our clothes for exercising in the morning, then the next day when we set out our clothes as a habit to set, as we set as a habit to set our clothes out in the morning for working out, then it sort of sets us up for success later in after work. Like, okay, I have time today, my clothes are here, I'll just gotta put it on and then go, right? It's having a system in place would, I guess, very much help if we slip up for that one day, because it sort of helps us it sort of gives us like a running start into that good habit, making a habit to make a habit work, basically. Yeah.
I like that. It's kind of like like having a habit to keep the habit. Like it keeps it in check. It keeps the habit. In check. That's no. It's a very good advice. Actually, I'm gonna try that out. I'm gonna try that out. Having
Yeah,
a
me too. I'm gonna
habit
try it too.
that having a habit that keeps the habit in check as well. I don't know why I haven't thought of that. Thank you for bringing that up. And just lastly before we close off this part of this topic is, how has managing or handling your habits better affected your overall life, like having that mindset of knowing your good habits, about knowing the habits that you still needed to change, and managing it. How has that affected your life?
It made me a lot more patient, more resilient, and above all, I'm a lot happier now. Believe it or not, it has really, really tremendously helped me in terms of my emotions and how I see things, and the outlook in life. I don't know. It's hard to put it in words, but it's a lot of descriptive words or adjectives that I can think of. But bottom line is, in terms of a pragmatic approach, it's really, I've chosen to take that path. It's because I know that it's going to help me move on forward, no matter how bitter my past was. And when I've now developed those skills or even these habits that has helped me move on with my life and have a more fulfilling life, then the reward is definitely so much more than you can expect and you can handle sometimes. So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for my past, and I cannot wait for what's in store in the future. And so thank you for having me today. That I was
Thank you for
able to
thank you
share my
for
experiences.
being here and then sharing your thoughts as well. How about you, Lionel? Like, how has handling your habits better affected your
Um, in addition to what Melvi has mentioned, is it sort of helps us get control back, in some form of control back in our lives, because sometimes our lives can be so controlled by those bad habits that it sort of adds a bit more unnecessary stress. And for me, I'm the type of person that kind of tries to avoid unnecessary stress, because like it's not a good way for me to spend my time to stress about something that's like it it like I can't do much about it, so I'm just gonna sort of not don't want to worry about it. And so to sort of help that would be um, make replacing those bad habits with good, giving more control back in our lives, and it would be very beneficial for us as well, because we would be living better lives, healthier, we'd be eating healthier, and all that stuff. That Mel even mentioned that the 30-day challenge that her and her friends did, right? She that's a perfect example, because she felt great, they looked great, and it was able to help them not only grow like personally, but also within their friend group, right? Having someone there to help us out can help, strengthen the bonds between friends. And overall, it's um, overall positive, a positive effect on my life. And yeah, thanks so much for having us, EJ. Thank you,
Yeah.
Chatline, for
Actually, no. Thank you for no. Thank you
this.
for joining me here today, Lionel and Melvi. Thank you for sharing, your thoughts, your advice with us today, and to all of our listeners. If you're listening, maybe you're feeling a little bit, discouraged because there's maybe some bad habits that you still need to change. You still want to change. Don't be discouraged, and there's still, I know, there's hope in this because when we say developing habits, it's a lifelong thing that we have to practice, right? Which we'll explore the continuation of that topic next week. Next week, so in our next broadcast, we'll continue this conversation. But until then, thank you for hanging out with us. Thank you for sharing your comments as well there in our team live chat. And we hope that this has been a conversation that mattered to you. So we'll see you again next time on INCRadio Chat Line. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Have a great weekend.
This is what I ask. Let me always dwell in the temple of the Lord till I leave my
This is INC Radio, DCEM 954, the voice of truth, the official radio station of the Church of Christ or Iglesia ni Cristo.
Kahit anong pait ng paghihirap ko, ang pag-asa ko ay laging nasa iyo. Pagsubok man ay dumating, sa tulong mo ay handa kong harapin. Mga kabiguan man ay tanasin ko, ang tiwala ko'y laan lamang sa'yo. Ang puso may mamighati, ako'y mananatili na sa'yo pa rin. Pumapatak ang luha ko sa hapis kong nadarama, ngunit ang aking katapat ay sa'yo. Ang pusong may mamighati, ako'y mananatili na sa'yo.